I hope you're ready for this. I'm going to introduce you to my new twin. That's right, Temitope. I don't know where he got that name from, but I'm going to find out. Anyways, this guy is a character. He has got a heart of worship and a heart for the world. I can't wait for this conversation. I'm going to probably ask a few safe questions, and then I asked him for some permission. I'm like, can I just ask inappropriate things that, you just shouldn't ask on YouTube? He was like, man, whatever you got, you just bring it to me. We'll delete it afterwards if it goes outside the line. So stick with me. Here's a conversation with Temitope. Okay, first inappropriate question is, how do you get a name like Temitope? I want a name like that, something original. Everybody's named Ryan. I get in a group, it's like Ryan here, Ryan there. That never happens to you. It's like so original.
Thank you. I love the intro too. I think we're talking about our mutual friend Matt McCoy. Both of you have the most legit podcast intros I feel like I've seen. Like
Yes, yes.
it's amazing.
We have
Yeah,
influenced each other.
we love it. Hey, you know what we're supposed to do? Iron sharpens iron, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's good. Yeah, it's funny because in the United States,
Yeah.
Temitope is a very unique name amongst like people with like more like Anglo orientated names, like Ryan,
Yeah.
Matt,
Yeah.
whatever. But in Nigeria, Temitope is very common. It's like Tom.
Oh, I see.
It's like Dave.
You're
Like there's a lot
kidding.
of Temitopes.
Okay. And what about like what happened to the last name? Do you have a last name or are you just like Temitope is enough? I don't need a last name.
Well, here's the deal. My last name is Peters, which I think
Oh,
totally it's like a rocket flying up and then just crashing. Just like
yes, yes,
oh, like
yes. Yeah, it was
Peters.
going so good.
It was so good. So anytime in any of my marketing materials, I always tell people like, don't do my last name. Don't do
Don't
it.
do your
Just
last name. Okay.
leave it off. But what's
Yeah,
funny is Peters also is a very Nigerian last name.
it is.
Yes. So a little like short history. Like basically, my dad's Nigerian, my mom's
Yeah,
British.
yeah.
They both immigrated to the United States from their respective countries of origin, and got married, had three kids. I was raised with my siblings in San Diego, and my name is Temitope. Temitope in is originates from the Yoruba tribe in Nigeria. There's a few
Uh-huh.
different tribes, and even within the tribes, there's different dialects of these tribal languages. And my dad was saying you can't like they don't actually like learn them in school. It's all like oral. It's like
Yeah.
just taught like so. He's like his parents taught him Yoruba, but the Yoruba that he and his siblings speak is different than the Yoruba that his parents speak. But all to be said, my name Temitape you originates from the Yoruba tribe, and it's a sentence. It just means mine is
Is
thanks.
thanks. Yes.
Mhm.
There you go.
So we were just doing some. I was telling you we were shooting a bunch of content today, so we were doing street interviews, and I was
Yeah.
asking people, "So what does Temitape mean to you?" And we got all
Oh,
kinds of
interesting.
fun responses. Like some guy thought it was like a drug term. Somebody thought it was a salsa, like a Latin dance. I was like, "It's my
Yeah.
name."
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
So
but
funny.
yeah, it's just a sentence.
Well, I introduced you as my like new twin. So like we both sporting the jean jackets. You just put it on. We both sporting a beard, so that's good.
Oh,
I mean, I could
yeah.
have worn my hat, but the flavor of our skin might be a little different, and that's okay. That's okay with me.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about either.
Yeah, I don't know what
Anyways.
you're talking about. No, I love honestly,
Yeah.
I love that you said that because even getting into some maybe some uncomfortable topics.
Yeah.
Um, Even within my own family, because I am obviously very dark. I'm black.
Yes. Yes.
My wife is a white redhead, so
Okay.
it's like very funny because I'm like 6'3" black
Mm-hmm.
dude. She's this 5 foot white chick, and
Mm-hmm.
so people when they see us and then we have kids when we walk around with our kids, people are always just like, "What in the world?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
people come in all shapes, colors,
Love
and
it.
sizes. Hello." And so I
Okay.
was
I
talking to
gotta
someone in. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna tell you. Sorry to cut you off, but I
No,
wanted to
you're
tell you
good.
something that I think you might find interesting. Is I was looking at PraiseCharts stats today of where people come to our website from all over the world, And after the US and Australia and Canada and a couple of like, predominantly white countries, one of the most predominant places that people are coming to praise charts is Nigeria. I don't know if that's
Nigeria.
surprising to you, but I'm like,
Nope.
I need to talk to someone and tell me what's going on in Nigeria. Why is that happening? Can you school me
Yeah.
a little bit? What's going on in Nigeria?
That's a great question. Honestly, I don't feel like I can school you a little bit because I have never been to Nigeria.
Hmm.
So I'm the only person in my family that's never been. I got married really young, had kids really young, and so like when
Mm-hmm.
everybody like my parents had gone back and forth, throughout my growing up. My mom really, and then because her mom moved from London to Nigeria to run a hospital, and then my siblings started going, but I was married and started to have kids. So I don't have a lot of knowledge firsthand or first experience about like what it's like to be there. I just know
Hmm.
like from my family or from my friends and from people, yeah, friends and family that are there now. But I do know that the worship culture in Nigeria is
This is
huge.
what I have heard. Yes.
It's huge. There's a really big worship music conference there. I think it's called the Experience.
Yes.
Um, and I think it has like I don't quote me on it, even though we're on a podcast and people will quote me. But it's like I think it's
Yeah.
like 1 million people. Like
I
it's
know.
huge.
Like we think a big conference is, oh, there was 10,000 people or 20,000 or the biggest stadiums hold 60,000 here where I'm in Vancouver. But seriously, I've heard the same thing. Can you imagine 1 million people and then a stage in the center and then you start singing and then there's just like this eruption of spontaneous, congregational rhythm in, of course, an African vibe. I mean, I think and the ground would shake. It's just
Oh yeah.
North Americans, we have no idea what.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a big conversation. First off, well,
Yes.
just a quick note, I knew you're Canadian. I didn't know you're from Vancouver, but go
Yes.
Canucks.
Yes.
And I Vancouver is one of my favorite cities
All
in
right.
the in North America. Yes, love it.
Thank
I've
you.
been to Vancouver 3 times this year.
Excellent. Come
Yes,
and
I
see
love
me,
it.
man. There you go. The
I
door's
will.
open.
Like for real. I'm like now I have another friend in
Mm.
Vancouver. There's a place
Mm-hmm.
called Barnabas Landing,
Mm-hmm.
if you're familiar.
Mm. No, I'm not actually.
It's beautiful. It's you take a ferry from Horseshoe Bay.
Oh yes, Barn. Okay, yes, very
Yeah.
good.
So
Yeah,
it's great. But all that to be said, back to Nigeria. Yeah, there's a
yeah.
huge worship culture there, and I think one of the ways that we in North America, specifically, yeah, in Canada and the United States, one of the ways that we have experienced the worship culture was through a little song called Waymaker.
Yes, yes,
Sinach is Nigerian. I believe
yes,
she's Yoruba.
yeah,
And that song, what I'd like to tell people is I remind them, yes, it seems like we're in the North America. I don't know how it is in Canada, but it feels like, I was just leading out of church. We sang Waymaker, and they're like, man, we haven't sung that song in forever, but it got really old because we were singing it over and over and over and over. And I'm like, yeah, cool, cool, cool. I'm like, but you have to realize before like it became done, quote unquote, in North America,
mm-hmm,
it's
mm-hmm,
been making laps in Africa. Like
mm-hmm,
that song was huge in Nigeria and I believe in other countries in Africa before it made its way to North America. And I think what's cool about it, it's a beauty and a hard thing
yeah,
because the beauty is Michael W. Smith and Leland were looking
yeah,
outside of the U.S. to see what God was doing, and
mm-hmm,
said, "How can we pull in this expression of faith and worship from outside the U.S. to bless what's happening within the U.S. and within North America?" That's multiculturalism. It's understanding
mm-hmm,
and celebrating that God is moving and working around the world in different ways. And when we can bring those together, when differences come together versus against each other, right? We come together because of our differences, not move against each other because of our differences. We
mm-hmm.
see the heart of God. So their heart in finding that song, not just hearing it, but like we're gonna make versions that are contextualized to the US. What was happening in Nigeria blessed the US. Now the bummer piece of it is it's a bummer that it took two white dudes from North America
Yes,
to bring a song and make it,
yeah,
popularized here. And I don't mean any disrespect. I know Leland.
Yeah.
Wonderful dude.
Yeah.
I've had interactions with Michael. Wonderful dude. I don't mean any disrespect. I just think it actually says more to do about like our worship culture
Yeah.
and our consumer culture, where we're not really interested in something that's not directly affecting us or directly coming from us.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is an interesting thought to think how many sort of hidden ways is African culture impacting American worship. Like we think we've got the way, we got to impact the world. What about, like I was just thinking about that song Praise. I think I heard you talking about this. Is just there's a rhythm and a beat. It starts out with that like you could almost hear the African Congo drum kind of rhythm. But we don't really think of that as a African song, but the influence is there. It's coming through, hey?
Hey, yes, and specifically one of the writers on that song, Chandler Moore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know that he has been to Experience. He's led worship at the Experience conference in
Oh
Lagos.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Right.
I know that he's been to Nigeria a few times, and I know that some people that run in his circle, like they're African, like Ghanaian, and so I know he's
Mm-hmm.
got some people that he's rubbing shoulders with that are influencing him in a good way and expanding his idea of what rhythm is. And I don't know if that was like his direct contribution that piece of
Mm-hmm.
the song, but I'm like I can guarantee you that that experience did help inform what
Yes.
praise is now becoming
Yes.
and has
And
become.
yeah, and like so it should be. Like let the world leak into all over. Certainly American can influence outside of North America, but also let's just recognize we're not like the center of the universe, Let the world also have its influence in us. And I mean, I would just say as a musician myself, I love to feel like I've got some of that soul gospel beat and rhythm inside of me. I mean, I love to even learn from guys like you who've just got it sort of embedded in your very DNA, that rhythm, that beat, that soulfulness, some of those chord progressions and things like that I just want to ingest into my own musical personality. So like let the church mix and mingle, don't you think? Like let's bring us together. I know that is in particular your heart, and you're a black guy bringing that message, not a white guy bringing a black song to the white people, but you're a black guy bringing, I mean, there you are, you're in Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah, I think you're in a studio right now in Capitol
Mm-hmm.
Music, right? Just working it.
Yeah.
You're a working musician, Nashville, Tennessee, bringing a little flavor of the world into the place where music emanates. I mean, you're in the music factory right now. This is where great songs are made, hey?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that I tell people too, like I am not ashamed of who I am, and I'm not ashamed of how I grew up.
Mm-mm.
I'm also very real about it, right? Because I did not
Yeah.
grow up in Nigeria like my dad. I grew up in
Mm-hmm.
Southern California. I grew up in San Diego, and most of the influences around me were white people. It wasn't a lot of black people. If there was any black people, they were fresh off the boat from Africa, right? And there was not
Mm.
that many. And so I actually understand white culture, if you will, very
Mm-hmm.
well from
Mm-hmm.
growing up in it. Um, but I'm still a black man, so like when things happen in the world, or I come across different situations in life, I'm very often reminded the color of my skin, and I have my kids, right? My kids are mixed, so they're half black,
Mm-hmm.
half white. And my wife and I have had conversations with, and we will have conversations with them as they get older. Just like, hey, man looks at the outside, God looks at the heart. So we're very concerned, like we are more interested in the development of your heart,
Mm-hmm.
because that will saturate everything else. And like, and look, everyone loves the MLK quote about where he's like, I'm more concerned about the content of, someone's character than the color of their skin. But like we talked about earlier, when you said,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we might be wearing the same jacket and you can wear a hat, I could have glasses, but obviously we look different. When people say, oh, like I'm colorblind, like I've had someone in my own family say, I'm colorblind. And I'm like, to say you're colorblind is to basically say that God was not intentional in
Right.
creating diversity. We
Yes.
know in Revelation 4
Yes.
and 7, it denotes diversity amongst the heavenly beings, the seraphim, the cherubim, all these heavenly beings. There's diversity amongst them. And then it talks about every tribe, every nation, every tongue, all people.
Yeah.
So the essence and beauty of our God cannot be monotonized into one monochromatic expression. It has to be seen
Yeah.
in diversity,
Yeah.
in people standing together. And the only place that that truly can happen, like you're
Yeah.
saying, the church should mix and mingle. The church should be the only entity, only family with the capability to truly be a place where people can go, I voted this way, I voted that way, I look this way, I look
Yeah.
that way. My family structure's like this, my family structure's like that, but we share the same pew, we eat from the same bread, we
Yeah.
bear each other's burdens. The
Yeah.
church community is the only thing that can do that, because the only true unity that we ever will experience or can experience
Yeah.
is only made possible by the blood of Jesus.
Very good.
And so I really am passionate about making that message known to the church. And because I live in North America, and the majority of churches that are influencing the North American church expression, if you will, are majority white, I think God was intentional in making me a black person to carry
Mm-hmm.
this message to white churches, but in a way that doesn't make white people feel like they're on the defense,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not a us versus them thing. It's a we. How can we? God reconciled us
Mm-hmm.
to Himself through Jesus, so that we could also be agents of reconciliation to each other. Second
Mm-hmm.
Corinthians.
Very
So
good.
I could
Okay.
keep going.
I love it. Well, we will keep going. I'm just thinking, like, I'm thinking about crossing the line here. So brace yourself. Hopefully I don't offend you, but I want to know, because these are like the questions you just want to ask someone who has black skin. Like, I just want to ask not a white guy about what it's like to be black. I want to ask a black guy about, like, what's your perspective? What's your experience? Can you take me into a season or experience that you've had where you felt your blood kind of boil with, like, oh my goodness, this is tough. This is rough. This is intense. This needs to change. I don't deserve to be treated like this or spoken to like this. I don't know. I'm just like searching for something. Give me a piece of a story that helps me like see the need for this story, this message, this of reconciliation. Can you take me there? Take me to some gritty kind of place.
Yes, Ryan, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Ryan. I love that you are not afraid to go into hard places, because I think that the church sometimes we shy away from areas that Jesus was running towards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's messy. Like, this conversation is messy, but I tell people all the time, the reconciliation space requires a key element of the gospel, grace.
Yeah.
I might say some things that are going to offend you. You might say some things that are going to offend me. But if we recognize that our goal is the same, it's
Yeah.
really just to stand together as a family. And part of, like with my family, we sit at the table and it's like, hey, we're going to have to talk about some hard things,
Yeah.
right? Because part of functioning in this family is recognizing that, like, we are one piece of this
Mm-hmm.
entire family.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be times we rub, and there's going to be times that we need to say sorry, but that never
Yes.
doesn't make us family, right? So I just want to
Okay.
commend you
Well, let's
for doing
offend
that.
someone. Let's offend someone together, because I wanna hear the real stuff.
Well, here's the story for you. There was a
Okay.
church community I was involved with, and they were really excited about me being involved with them. And I heard it from the lead pastor's mouth. We want to be multicultural, and I was like, great. Like, I would love to help be a part of whatever God is doing to move this church community that was predominantly white towards being a multicultural expression. So I come in and, I was leading worship and having conversations with people, and, just not being unashamedly myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it started to slowly, conversations started to be had that some of the people, and I'll be very specific, some of the people that were big tithers were
Uh-oh.
not happy
Yeah.
that I was there being myself.
Yeah.
They were uncomfortable because it was different. And that's what happens, right? It's like, just a side note, but still connected to the story. There's a movie that many people probably know called Pocahontas. Disney did a version,
Mm-hmm.
Pocahontas. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a song called Savages. And it's the Native Americans and the white colonizers singing this song Savages to each other. It's the same song, same language. We fear what we don't understand,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So these big tithers are writing to the lead pastor directly and saying, we don't like Temitope being here because he's worshiping different. So that started this conversation that the leadership started having with me about basically trying to tone down my expression as a black man, because they're like, well, some of the movements you do are violent, and I was like, well, what makes a movement violent? Like, well,
What are
when
you
you're
doing
doing
like this?
this, literally, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, and I'm like, have you? And I remember having a conversation. I'm like, have you not talked to other like black churches? And they're like, oh yeah, we've talked to other black churches, and they say they don't do that. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, again, I can't help how I grew up. Temitope does not. I am not. I don't represent all black people, and all black people don't represent me. Like, to
Yeah.
have true diversity is to look at a singular person and go like, you are Psalm 139, fearfully and wonderfully created in your mother's womb. There's something unique
Yeah.
about you. Not every white person's the same. Not every black person's the same. Not every Hispanic person's the same. You get it. So that was some conversations like about basically them trying to go like, well, how can we get you to tone down? So I like to lead without a instrument because I love to be free. I love to like
Yeah.
to move in like,
Yeah.
and I hope that my freedom and expression in worship allows other people to be freely expressive in worship. And if you've ever seen like a church in any country in Africa, there's a lot of movement. There's a
Yeah.
lot of yelling.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of joy, and that's how I lead. I mean, I might have never been there, but Africa's in my bones. You know what I mean? And so, I they kept trying to do things like, well, why don't you play keys and lead? Why don't you have a guitar and lead? And then I was at the
Oh.
broadcast campus, and they moved me to the smaller campus, and then the smaller campus, and the smaller campus, and it just
Hmm.
got to the point where there's one of my buddies was a worship pastor on staff and I was contracted, and he told me, he was like, I don't like how they're treating you.
Hmm.
He's like, it's wrong. He's
Hmm.
like, and I think that like, he's like, I wouldn't be upset if you left. He's like, I can see what's happening, and I don't agree.
Hmm.
And so I did. I ended up just, I had hard conversations, and I ended up leaving, and it actually ended up being a really good thing in the sense that like my wife and I ended up going to a church community, the one we're at now. Shout out Proclamation. Doo, doo, doo.
Hmm.
And we chose to go there because for all my life until this point, all of my pastors have been white.
Yeah.
And that's not bad, but I just didn't want my kids to see the only black person in leadership to be their dad. The same way that I saw growing up, the only black person in my leadership was my dad. He wasn't a
Yeah.
pastor, but he was an elder. And so that kind of comes back to the whole conversation of like, how do you become even a multicultural expression? Well, I find it's very difficult to have a multicultural church without multicultural leadership.
Yes.
Everything flows down. So my wife and I looked at this. We looked in our area. We're like, what's drivable so we can be in community? We want to find a church that's not like all black with one white person or all white with one black person.
Yeah.
We want to see even more than that. We want to see um, other colors and even women in positions of leadership. And so that's what
Yes.
Proclamation is. It's like
Wow.
black pastor, white
Yeah.
associate pastor, white women's pastor,
Yeah.
Hispanic youth
Yeah.
pastor, and the church is reflective of it. And I will say, Ryan, I know this might be offensive to some people, but I really think a multicultural church needs a person of color as the lead.
Hmm. Yeah.
In my experience,
Yeah.
that's what a really multicultural church needs, a person of color as the lead,
Yeah.
because they can think in minority ways and it will flow out that way. But when it's a majority leader, again,
Yeah.
no disrespect, but
No.
I think it's really hard for them to understand what it's like for me as a person of color to walk into a room and be immediately othered.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't know that, like, they don't know.
Do you think it's possible that some churches want to deal with this, but they approach it in this kind of like, it's almost like they tokenize the presence of, multicultural people. Like they'll put them on stage or make it look like they have this issue solved or settled, but it's not, somehow it's not real, it's not authentic, it's not deep, it's not, they're not putting them in leadership. They're just putting them on stage or, do you know what I mean? Does that happen?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think that kind of happened to me. I think that if you are not careful,
Yeah.
we can make idols from anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just think that, and I will say for me, multiculturalism has was at one point an idol for me, where I was more interested in like multiculturalism than the God whose heart is multicultural.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Like there is a
Mm-hmm.
difference. So I think if you're just like, well, we just want to be multicultural,
Mm-hmm.
like, and you're not like about the heart of God. Isaiah talks about God being the light of the nations, and the light drawing the nations to Himself. So I really think that church communities, even if even led by white leaders, I think if you like are allowing the heart of God to truly saturate your church, He will draw the nations because His heart is for the nations.
Yes.
Um, but I think if you're just trying to appear a certain way and your
Yeah.
heart's not right,
Yeah.
it's going to be like the experience that I lived, where you're going to
Yeah.
get people to go because you're saying the right things,
Yeah.
and you like. I think that's really what it is you're saying the right things, but you're not doing the right things.
Yeah. Oh,
Good.
that's just like the worst version of church when that starts to happen. I mean, in so many levels, but you can just start to smell it. Like something's not authentic, something's not right here, and that's a tough place to be. So,
Yeah.
oh, well, you sure bring the there's a word that you've actually brought. You talk about horizontal worship. This is part of your sort of heartbeat for worship. Tell me a little bit about that, because you're trying to like break down some of these barriers between us by bringing by with a focus and a priority on worship and how in worship we can come together. Do you want to
Yeah.
unpack that a little bit for me?
Yeah. Yeah. Ryan. Well, I think that there is vertical and horizontal worship.
Yeah.
Vertical is like about loving God, right? First and
Yeah.
greatest commandments: love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, and mind. But then there's the second, which is love your neighbor as yourself. So there's how is worship leading us to behold the greatness of God, and also to hold the greatness of God in our brother or sister,
Mm-hmm.
especially those who don't look like us.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, vertical draws your eyes up, and horizontal draws your eyes to your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's important because if you look at the descriptions of heaven that we have in the book of Revelation from John, they're trippy, bro. Like it's wild. It's like, what kind of drugs were you taking? Like, like not really, but it's like it's just really wild. But a lot of what he talked about, I tell people, John's description of Revelation, it would be like us going from 2024 and going back to the 1800s and trying to describe 2024. You're not going to use words that they don't understand. They're not going to know what a Tesla is. So you would
Yes.
be like, well, it'd be like a horse, right? But
Yes.
a man-made horse
Yes.
that doesn't require that can take its energy from like the sun.
The
Like, you know what I
sun.
mean? Like you have to use their language to
Yeah.
describe something that they've never
Yes.
seen or experienced before. So
Yes.
that's revelation. But one of the things that remains constant, unchanged, is
Huh.
worship. The throne room, it's worship. It's every tribe and nation and tongue. It's the diversity amongst earthly beings. It's the diversity that we talked about earlier amongst heavenly beings, all around the throne singing one song: Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God
Yeah.
Almighty, who was and is to come. So worship has this really innate ability to unify us around the heart of God. Again, as
Mm-hmm.
we behold the light of the nations, it draws together the light of the nations. And so I think that worship music and that expression on earth is one of the ways that we can tangibly experience heaven on earth. I'll use a secular example.
Mm-hmm.
You can get an LGBTQIA, but BLM, a white supremacist, a female like a woman's right advocate, and a military guy person, all in the same room, united to the purpose of listening to John Mayer.
Hmm.
You can do it.
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time. Anytime there's a concert,
Yeah.
people come together from all walks of life, all kinds of belief systems, but they're unified in the purpose of seeing that artist and experiencing that music. And it's
Yeah.
like, man, it doesn't matter what you do in and out of this place, but it's like, if you came in here and you're watching John Mayer or Taylor Swift or Beyonce or fill in the blank with me, then you're my brother or my sister, at least for the 2 hours of the
Yeah.
show, right?
Yeah. Truly.
Um, so music's got that ability, and so
Yeah.
what I think music does, secular, is it turns the lights off in the room and turns the lights on the stage. When I want the music that I'm a part of, and I believe worship music in general should turn the lights off on the stage and turn the lights on in the room. Do the
Mm-hmm.
opposite,
Mm.
so that people can see like
Hmm.
what's drawing us together is the heart of God. But this reality that we're experiencing is heaven on earth. This
Mm-hmm.
is what Jesus came when he talks about the kingdom of God. It's like so that we could be living in this kind of koinonia, this community
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why for me, like even as I've dived into it, I've thought about like, well, should I stop doing music? Should I start writing books or start like doing other things? And the more just like I've sat with it, I'm like, no, like music actually is such a
It's so
essential piece of
powerful. Yeah, I do agree. You know what? I think I don't think I have ever understood the entire book of Revelation like I start to get it right now when you say it's like trying to explain a Tesla to someone who lived 1,000 years ago. It's just like, ah, that's why it's so out of this world. There isn't language, so they are grasping at straws, trying to explain something that is not of this, not of this world. So that you have some genius conceptions that have just come out of you in the last couple of minutes, and you were a gold mine of wisdom. I'm telling you, Temitope.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, can
Well,
we look at? Go
I will
ahead.
gladly say that I'm the result of good mentors.
Yeah.
Like honestly, that's the only way. If there's any wisdom in me, I mean, it's the grace of God and the wisdom of God given to me by like people that have journeyed way longer and further
Yes.
than I have.
Yes. Yes. Hey, let's look at some music. I have a screen. You haven't seen this yet. That's Tuppe on Praise Charts, if you can believe. So we've got lots of songs. We could talk about any of these, but can we pick out one or two? What stands out? Like, what are
Yeah.
you excited about? Or what are
Well,
we missing?
obviously. Oh well, you're missing the record that's coming out on November 1st.
Okay, well, hey, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet. But no, I love King of All the Nations. I mean, that's basically what so much of what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
You know, I love that song. Wrote it with my buddies Sean Matta and Alexander Pappas, and
What? Chris Tomlin?
like I know people are always like Chris Tomlin wrote on it. And I'm like, it's just because we tagged, we fall
Oh,
down.
I thought Chris Tomlin was your best friend. Shoot.
Not yet. He doesn't know yet.
Yes, he
He doesn't
doesn't
know
know
yet.
yet.
You know,
Okay.
we've met each other many times. He's always
Yes.
so kind, but he always
Yes.
looks at me like slightly like the whole like, wait, remind me who you are again. I'm like, it's fine, it's fine. I'm just your best friend from the future.
Yes. Anyways, I mean, We Fall Down is a song that can go with so many great songs. Chris Tomlin is such an incredible legend, but King of All Nations, certainly that expresses the heartbeat of all that we've just been talking about. So wonderful. That's a good one. What else we got
Yeah.
here? Let's just like look at a couple of these together. How about this? Enemy threats, empty threats. Sorry, enemy threats, empty
You're
threats.
good.
Josh Baldwin. Just 3 minutes
Yes.
ago, I didn't have Josh's name tagged on this, and I was like, I like Josh so much. I need to make sure that he is designated as an artist on this song because he's singing it with you, isn't he? Good friend of
He
yours?
is. Yes. I love Josh. We wrote that with our friends Nick Bays and Ryan Shirley. And
Mm-hmm.
oh, I love that song so much. It talks about just about how when you are saturated in the truth of God, it allows you to hear the enemy's words appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
They're just empty. They're empty. So anything that is not of God is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that the enemy's trying to tell you that doesn't align with God's word, is an
Mm-hmm.
empty threat. I think even as it relates to our conversation, so when it talks
Yeah.
about people's value and their yeah, and their worth within the family of God, I'm like, man, anything that is
Yeah.
not of the Lord is
So
empty.
good.
So, like, again, don't be afraid to be who God has made you to be within the church community. Bring yourself. Everybody has to bring their un. I tell people, I'm like, what I'm hoping for, my vision is an authentic people in a
Yeah.
multicultural church for a reconciled world.
Yeah.
When we
Yeah.
bring our authentic selves within the church, and that's not saying I'm going to just come into agreement with sin, right? That's to say, like, I understand that God's made me fearfully and wonderfully on purpose, and I'm going to submit every part of my being to Christ. But like me being a black man
Mm-hmm.
in Christ is purposeful. You being a white man in Christ is purposeful. Bring
Mm-hmm.
that to the church, let it be seen and celebrated, and that's going to show the world what reconciliation looks like. So I think Empty
Mm-hmm.
Threats is great for that. There's another song on there that
Okay.
I
Show
love to
me.
point out. What You're Worthy Of.
Right there. I got it. Mitch Wong.
Yes.
Yes.
Mitch Wong. Mitch Wong,
He's a
Zach Bowen from
songwriter.
Simpsons. And he's a new dad, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And he's a great human. And Zach Bowen too, great dad, great human. That song, I will say, it's been so encouraging to see local church communities grab onto that and start singing it.
Uh-huh. Beautiful.
I've been I've been able to go to a few different church communities around the U.S. and like sing it with people that have been singing it, which
Right.
is cool.
So amazing. Now, you right now live in a songwriting studio in Capital. I feel like I want you to just pick up your phone and just like show
Yeah,
me, show me like where this stuff happens. See if you can pick it
yeah,
up. There we
okay,
go. Okay, what do we got there? It's just like it's like a little room dedicated. I was just walking through this whole area. But this is
yeah.
where some of
My
these
phone
great
is bad.
songs come from. Look at that. There we go. I'm watching it. Here, I'll spread it out. Oop, that's me. Ha! There we go. Oh, did I lose you?
You got
I
it
got you. Yeah, I can see it. You can
right
show me
here.
around. There we go.
Okay, so this is like, whoop, here we go.
Yeah,
Come on, there we go. This is like a little like producer station.
yeah.
So the producer would set his computer up on those little stands, and then the speakers are there just so we can listen back to whatever he or she is creating. And then if I move this way, this working great.
Little
We got
piano.
a little upright piano, and then I think let me see. Can I get over here? There's a guitar in the corner. That microphone's probably blocking it.
Yeah, yeah, I see it
And
there.
then
Yeah,
back over here, whoo,
yeah.
is a mic.
Beautiful.
So you can literally sit in this room, and I've written in this room many times.
Have you
And yes, I've written in this room. I'm trying to think of like any songs that I've
that you
that
could
like even that
remember?
we shared. Yeah, I don't think any songs that are on praise charts for me right now have been in this room.
Mm-hmm.
But I've written a good amount of songs in this room,
Do you find how do you
and I've been here
feel
all day.
like how do you feel when you open the door and you come into that room and you're like, we got to come up with something in a couple hours here? Like, is the pressure on? Do you feel the pressure cooking, or do you just feel like, okay, we just got to get to know each other? Just like you and me. I mean, I felt a little pressure 10 minutes before you called, and I'm like, am I going to get along with him? Is he going to be offended by my questions? Am I going to have to delete most of this podcast? But you've done amazing so far. I'm not deleting any of this, even if I get in trouble. I just like this conversation. And I'm
Well,
just
lucky
kind
for
of
you,
a,
I like Canadians.
oh, that's good.
Yeah, I love Canadians. So it's
Yeah,
like great. Give
yes.
me poutine all day. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly. I can imagine if a songwriter, like if you're doing a co-write and they come together in a room with you, you're gonna have an effect on them pretty quickly that's gonna set them at ease and be like, all right, this is gonna be like I can do this. We can come up with something together. I've watched a couple videos of you in rooms like I was just watching a half an hour ago of a song you guys wrote about so it sort of was like blending Christmas and Easter and he is here or hope is here something like that, but anyways I just
Oh
saw these
yeah.
folks all gathered around you, and I thought, what an experience to have that like community together in a small space and just all hearts, all minds, all, passionate about a fresh song. That'd be such an incredible experience.
Yeah, well, I'll say two things about songwriting,
Yeah.
Ryan. One, the goal I the goal is not about what's going to happen outside the room, it's about what's happening in the room. God is much
Mm-hmm.
more concerned with communion than product.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you write, there's some of the best songs I've been a part of, like What You're Worthy of. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, me and Mitch and Zach, we know each other. Like, we've done writing together before. We've talked outside of writing. Like, we've done some live. There's a song on the record coming out in November called Heart and Mind. It's capital. Like, when we had like our listening meeting and stuff. It's one of their favorite songs, and they're like, it's because me and my co-writer Nick Bays, who's also my producer, he
Mm-hmm.
and I have done a lot of life together. So when you get into a room like this and you're in here with people that you don't know, there's always time that is taken just to get to know each other,
Yeah.
to allow communion to be there.
Yes.
Because like, we're not trying to build a thing. We're trying to, like, God's more concerned about what's happening in us more than
Yeah.
what we can do for Him. So that's the first thing. The goal is always communion. So
Yeah.
sometimes a good songwriting session is spending 3 hours talking and walking out with just a chorus. That's a good session,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. Nothing wrong with
The
that.
second thing is, I don't feel any pressure because I believe that songwriting is not about innovation, it's about excavation.
Mm.
I think that heaven is already singing the melodies, and the goal is to empty ourselves enough to hear what the angels are singing and pull it down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's excavating. The song already exists. I'm not inventing anything new. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just listening to heaven and
Mm-hmm.
allowing heaven's melodies to pour into me and my co-writers, and creating a space with communion
Yeah.
where there's safety for, like, we can be vulnerable and let our guards down, and we all can be emptied and be filled, right?
Yeah.
Matthew, the Beatitudes. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Well, we
Yes.
want the righteousness of God to be made known on the earth. We want the righteousness of God to be manifested in these songwriting rooms. And
Yeah.
so we empty ourselves
Hmm.
and we will be filled.
Yeah. Innovation and excavation. I mean, more great wisdom from Temitope. You are just full of great stuff today. Love it.
I had a good breakfast.
You did. Temi, do people call you Temi? I'm sorry, I just said that, and I don't even know if they call
Yeah,
you that.
people
But
do call me Tammy. And we're
okay,
friends now. I'm going to come to your house in
okay.
Vancouver. We've already
I love it.
texted.
My front door is open. This has been a really encouraging conversation, and thank you for just letting me wander around some delicate conversations. But we've also had some great fun together and incredible nuggets of wisdom that you have gone. I'd have to go back and listen through like just little nuggets, little phrases that you have that's like, oh, I got to write that one down. So thank you for that. Thank you for your inspiration. Thank you for the whole aspect of horizontal worship and just reminding us that, the church needs to come together. Thank you for being my new friend and for wearing the jean jacket and sporting the beard. And I don't know, I feel very comfortable with you, very relaxed. I feel like, we could just talk about anything and not offend each other. And maybe other people listening in might be offended, but I think we're good, right? Like you and me, we're okay.
We're great.
All
If
right.
people want to be offended for us, that is in
Yeah.
line with the culture. I'm
Yeah.
just like, don't be offended for people that aren't
Yeah.
offended.
I know. I know. Just let it go.
Hey,
Okay.
I want to call you out and honor you. Like, I really appreciate, as much as you feel comfortable around me, I feel comfortable around you. I felt like the questions you asked were very respectful.
Okay.
It's sad to me that we are living in a time where they see questions as arrows, and I'm like, they're
Yeah.
not. Like, it's
Yeah.
really hard to understand if you don't have room to ask questions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate your heart to be inquisitive, and not just to like not just to let me share words, but to actually listen to what I
Yeah.
have to say.
Right.
I can tell you care about my perspective as a Black man in the
I
United
do.
States, and you value my voice. So thank you for
Yeah,
being you and for giving
right
me
on.
space to share.
Okay, well, we are so proud and honored to have your music on Praise Charts. I am sure you will see the rest of your album because most people will be watching this little YouTube video after the album comes out. So go get the music, it's there, plus all the other great songs, and keep firing out great songs. Keep going back into the grinding mill of those songwriting rooms and building community and watching other songwriters come alive and lose some of their stress or whatever it is that they're coming into the room with. I think you can bring them a sense of like, oh, I just feel peace and joy. I feel like I can do this. You can bring that to people and bring out some great songs. So just encourage you to keep going all around America and the world with this message and bring us together in the spirit of worship. So thank you, Temitope.
Thank you, Ryan. Love you,
All
dear
right.
friend.
All right.
And we'll see you in Canada for a Canucks game and poutine.
Looking forward to it. All right. See you there. This is Ryan Dahl and Temitope. Talk to you next time. Here we go.